Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jaron from Jeranism, back with another live video for you today. Appreciate it so much, you guys joining me as you always do. Big shout out, of course, to my patrons who make this channel and everything I do possible. Thank you guys for doing that, and thank you for all your support. Welcome to today's show. I'm excited that joining me is Ranty Flat Earth, otherwise known as Shane. He's going to show us things that, we've been talking about for years now, a long time. And Ranty actually goes out and makes these observations himself. I completely agree with Owen Benjamin and David from Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, who say support what you like or it goes away. So I know I'm a supporter of Ranty. I'm one of his patrons, which, by the way, I did not put your Patreon in the links. I will do that after the show. But let's go ahead and welcome him to the show. Here he is, Ranty Flat Earth. Ranty, you there?
Hello.
Good. Glad
I'm here.
Awesome. We're talking with Ranty Flat Earth, and Ranty, just I'm sure everybody knows you, but then again, I also noticed that in the YouTube analytics, let me get this up here. In the YouTube analytics, I always see that only like 80% of my viewers, or 80% of my viewers, are non-subscribers, which is a really weird number, but at the same time, it's a really good thing. I think a lot of times my videos do kind of go out to some people that are not subscribed, some people who are not regular flat earthers. And so if anybody's never heard of you, why don't you tell everybody what you do, who you are, and what we're going to be talking about today.
Essentially, I just came on the scene perhaps 3 years ago now, and I've just been chugging along, doing observations, appearing on the Flat Earth debates. I think I first appeared on there on like episode 70 or something like that, and picked up a few subscribers. I lost a channel, then got a new channel going, which is this one. And, I have a pretty narrow circle of friends kind of thing. And, I don't have a lot of subscribers, really. I think close to 3,000 now, but, it's not all about that. And it's more to do with the research, I think, and that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate everything that you do and the observations that you make. And so, yeah, we're going to be talking about that today. But if people want to head over to his channel, it is Ranty Flat Earth. It is the first link in the description. If you go to the description of this video, scroll down, the very first link is to Ranty's channel. Let's go ahead and see how many subs he's got and see if we can get him to somewhere. So it looks like he's got about 2,950 or so, 2,948. So I think by the end of the show, we can easily get you to 3,000. So everyone, if you're not subscribed to Ranty, head over there now. Like I said, it's the first link in the description. Click that and head over and give Ranty a sub. He would greatly appreciate it. And then also, we're going to be talking about this GoFundMe fundraiser, and I'll call out some of the donations that people have made. We'll call that out towards the end of the show after the presentation. But yeah, if you head over to, and actually I have a, let's see if we can put this up. There you go. There's your link if you want to help Ranty out. It's tinyurl.com/rantydrone. And Ranty has done great observations with the P1000. Before that, he had the P900. Just does great work. And again, people like Dave from Wide Awake, I could go on and on with all these people that have done just fantastic observations and have really helped me. So that's why I support these guys. I think you should support them too. And again, if you go to tinyurl.com/rantydrone, help out. He's at, what are you at? 1,040 pounds. I hate pounds. Why can't you guys just use dollars? Everything would be a lot easier. Just like Ranty and I got our times screwed up for this meeting today because we couldn't figure out when the hell GMT is versus BMT versus I'm over in the Pacific time and we were daylight saving. You know, it's just nonsense. But anyway, he's got 1,040 pounds of 1,429 is his goal. So maybe we can get you, you know, a few hundred pounds here. That'd be awesome if you guys appreciate the work that Ranty does. And the goal here is, let's check out his presentation, see what he's got to say. He did a video recently, which he's going to be talking about that I think is fantastic, called, I don't see it on my screen. Oh, because I went back. That's right. Where did we go? Yeah, here we are. So this video that he did the other day is called "The Game Is Up. We See Through Your Deceit. The Earth is Flat." And again, we are talking to Ranty Flat Earth, the creator of that channel in that video. And he's going to talk about it a little bit today. And I think you guys will be surprised at what he shows. And his work is just awesome. So, yeah, we're going to be sitting back and watching basically a presentation from Ranty today. And one more time, if you want to contribute to that, and we'll call everybody out who's helped out with that GoFundMe campaign, you can go to tinyurl.com/rantydrone. Let me make sure your Skype is ready. Go ahead and get your stuff ready, Ranty, and we can go when you're ready.
Okie dokie. Well,
so
whenever you're ready.
We're looking at the turbines, right?
Yeah, and
okay.
Funnily enough, this isn't my video. I just want to get that straight. It's a very, very new flat earther, and I've come across his work before, and we've spoken before. And he's literally just put this video out, and I'm not going to play it, obviously. I'm just going to show you some of the imagery, because I would like everyone, if they can, to perhaps head over there and subscribe to him as well, because this guy's got a P1000. He's out doing these observations. He does fantastic imagery. I mean, look at this. It's an absolutely beautiful shot. And I think he has less than 200 subscribers right now. But essentially what you're looking at here is basically the seafront of Blackpool. And you're looking at close to 200 feet should be missing due to Earth curvature if you believe in the globe model. So what we're seeing here is obviously the entire seafront of Blackpool. And I know all these buildings that he's showing is showing the entire Ferris wheel, for instance, and that's on the seafront. The entirety of that. It can only be 30 feet or so above a low tide, something like that. So, I mean, I'll just scan through it, and he's put some details in. He's even got a little red line going to show you where the Earth curve should be. So I'm just going to promote his channel because he does some really pretty stuff. So it's Exploring the Plane, and he has 187 subscribers right now. So if anyone fancies going over there and watching some of his stuff, he does some great work too. So I hope I wasn't killing the mood there by promoting someone else, Jaron. But
absolutely not. I'm heading over there right now. He has 120 right now because I just subscribed. So yeah, Exploring the Plane is the name of the channel, and yeah, everybody should check that out. Is this infrared or no? It looks like infrared.
Yeah, it looks like he's done it in some kind of filter, some kind of infrared filter at least. And yeah, it's just great stuff. Yeah, a lot of people do a lot of pretty stuff, so the pretty photography,
right,
that shows the flat Earth. I've done a few of these in the past. You know, that obviously the location where I live, at least, it seems flat. And you know, we can go out, we can get observations for the most part, you know, quite regular. But it's not all about just showing the flatness. It's understanding why the globe have been able to hijack perspective and convince the majority of people that the Earth is a sphere. And a lot of that's down to the weather conditions, the optics at play in things like an inferior mirage, which if people don't understand what that is right now, I will get to speaking about it. But you can actually see it in this particular image. You can see where there's a mirror reflection of this building down upon itself. And you can see it throughout the entire image. There is a mirror reflection. And that is called an inferior mirage. And obviously I'll talk about that, and I'll talk about a whole bunch of other things. So,
Good, yeah.
So where do you want me to start?
Yeah, give that guy a sub. And also, I am going to be doing a video soon because I know a lot of people, and myself included, thought that converting a P1000 to infrared was not possible, and I've heard that it is possible. I've actually got something in the mail from somebody showing me a work order that he had it done. You just have to have it done with Nikon. A lot of these sites that may claim that they can do it, LifePixel is one of them. They won't do the P1000 because it's too intricate, but you actually can have it done by Nikon service centers, and it's not even very expensive. I think it's about 150 or 175 US dollars. So it is possible for those people out there who went out and got a P1000 and then were upset that they couldn't convert it. You can do the full spectrum conversion if you like, so I'll do a video on that soon to talk about that. But anyway, it just looked like those were infrared images or video, which I think is beautiful, and obviously it cuts through the haze much more than a regular camera can. So I think it's a good idea for those who have the money to do it and have the camera and want to do it. I definitely think it's a good idea. So anyway, let's let Ranty go on ahead with his presentation. Go ahead, Ranty.
Okie dokie. So this is where I live. So I live in a place called Blackpool. It's in it's northwest of England, and basically you can find it in this exact spot here. Well, it's like a huge cove. What's interesting about this area is it doesn't have any really deep areas, you know, drop-offs. So places like Australia and New Zealand and things like that, they tend to have a couple of you go out a couple of miles and it's relatively shallow, and then you have these massive drop-offs, you know, going down thousands of meters. Well, we don't get that here. It's relatively low-lying water. You know, if you cross this entire region, I think it goes down as deep as maybe 80 meters at most. But that's something that I'll be talking about again. But this is where I do a lot of my filming from, and this is where I do a lot of my research from, and primarily it's from this general region along this part of the coast. And by going to these same locations over and over and over again, I'm able to build up quite a lot of data. I think at the current count, I have 4 terabytes of data now. So that's quite a lot to go through, and things that I've analysed over the past 18 months. But I have to say it's been worth it. Now then, I did a lot of observations from the beach last year down at Ankersholm, which was in this sort of region here. And I was filming from this location across this part of the sea, looking over at these buildings over in Barrow-in-Furness called Devonshire Dock Hall, etc. And I was getting some great observations, I have to say. I mean, essentially we were looking at complete flatness. So I did a lot of presentations on the Flat Earth debates on Nathan Oakley 1980s channel, and basically I think I appeared there virtually every day throughout the entirety of last summer because it was just great. The observations were really clear. We weren't getting a lot of inferior mirages. We did, but not often. And for quite a good stretch, I was able to go down and see these buildings regularly. Now, the issue for the globe is that I shouldn't have been able to see them. And the fact that I was able to just keep repeating it and repeating it and repeating it became quite of an issue for them. I had all kinds of claims of looming and all this kind of nonsense. And then eventually the globe heads decided to shut up and not really challenge me too much until I went to this location here, which is nearer. So I went to a location that was much nearer, and I just thought, oh, this would be a cool place to do this photography from. I found a ledge that I could lie down upon whilst the tide was coming in, so I could literally set my tripod up and have the waves washing around me, and it wouldn't affect. I'd be able to do time lapses, all this kind of stuff. But what I found was when I filmed from this place, I saw blockage. I saw blockage. I saw water blocking the bottom of the buildings that I'd been seeing completely flat for such a long time. So I released the video because, you know, I'm not one of these people that just wants to just show. I want to understand things, and I thought, well, if people can help me in that. It turned out that it was a bad move in respect for the globe has just turned and was like, yeah, that's proof of Earth curve. Right. And it was like, I'm like, well, how can there be proof of Earth curve from this spot when from this spot we're seeing completely flat and it's further away? So I did a little bit of research, and it transpires that in this location here, it's renowned, which I didn't know actually. It's renowned for something called a tidal bore, and the tidal bore happens between the mouth of the estuary, basically along this line of sight here. And we were getting this tidal bore pushing in. So when the tides were moving in, we were getting this tidal bore, and it was artificially increasing the height of the water in this location by about 2 meters. So when I filmed this observation down here, my tripod was set to 4 feet above actual sea level. So what we had was me looking across over here at Barrow in Furness, and then we had the tide pushing in, and we had a 2 meter high tidal bore that was artificially creating a hump of water in this location, in this exact spot. But yet, if I went just down the road and got out of that estuary, that narrow mouth there, and filmed from here, I wasn't getting that same effect. It was still staying relatively flat. So this sent me on a whole host of investigations. But that's just a brief rundown of my past and how I got to this point. But do you want to see some cool observations first?
Absolutely, yeah. Whatever you want to show. But yeah, it's certainly interesting that Globers will jump on any obstruction and immediately call it curvature. It's proof of the sphere. It's proof of the globe. But they shy away when that obstruction disappears. And when all of a sudden we can see that super far distance, that's what scares them. Why? Because, well, that's far more evidence of a flat Earth. Because occasionally we can get things obstructed. But when it's not obstructed, the curvature of the Earth has to be there, has to be obstructing it. And when it's not, well, you can make up your mind, those of you watching, what that means. To me, it clearly means that there is flatness. The Earth is a plane.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it's all about understanding what is, what is the cause of these obstructions? What's the cause of blockage? So as much as we can all see flatness for a really long, I mean, on this day, for instance, it was great. I went down to North Wales, and I met up with a flat earther there who hired a boat for the day. And he went out and he was jig-jogging past in front of this oil refinery out here, right? And this is his boat. This is his boat. And what he's doing is, this is his boat. So he's passing through here, and he's going behind the wind turbines, which is really interesting because I was able to triangulate his exact position when he's done this. I slow it down again to show you that it does go behind the wind turbine. You can see that the boat looks slightly compressed. I can get to that in a minute when we look at the next. If I just run through this is a boat called Panda. I've nicknamed it Panda Boat. It's not actually called Panda Boat, but it doesn't look like this in reality. In reality, it's much taller than this, but everything's been squashed downwards. And this is just an effect of compression. But these observations were killer anyway, simply because the fact that we were seeing them. I can get to the point of these by showing you, where are we? Where did I pop that? Let's have a look at this one. So, right, so here was my location. So here we go, 7 feet above actual sea level. I was with another flat earther at the time called Spurs Chemo. You might have heard of him. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're looking out here, we're looking to the Douglas complex. That's a direct line of sight to the Douglas complex. We have the exact wind turbines, which I plotted out onto Google Earth prior to this. And I was able to triangulate using the time data and the GPS locations of a Panda boat and the boat behind the turbines. Now, if the Globers wanted to argue that the boat behind the turbines was right close to the turbine, they could have that. That's fine, because essentially 40 feet should have been missing anyway, and that boat was only 16 feet high, so we shouldn't have seen any of the boat anyway. Wow. But obviously this is the place that they were jig-jogging past in front of the turbine. This was the direct line of sight, which obviously placed it much further away, and I think at this point there should have been about 60 feet or so of obstruction if you believed in the Earth curve. So I'll just play that video back again, which is this one passing. Here we go. So it's just starting off on the right hand side here, and you can see it goes behind the turbine clearly behind the turbine, and it's very evident that obviously that boat was behind this turbine, and by means of triangulating it, it places it at a distance that you shouldn't be able to see it on a curved Earth.
It's looming.
It's super looming,
Super
looming.
Yeah. Thank you, Muck
I think
West.
I might have if I go to the, what would it be? It'd be in the compression actually, because I'll have that data for that. So this will be the Panda. Oh, hang on. Yeah, Panda boat. Where are we? Panda boat, and here we go. So this is the Panda boat. So this is the other one that I was talking about and how it looked squashed. So essentially, this is called the Iceni Conquest. If we put all these details in, refracted, hidden, and all this, we assume an Earth curve. What we're looking at is that essentially 18.7 feet of it should have been missing to Earth curve. Now, the problem for the globe is that it's only 33 feet high. So when you actually look at this, you realise that where this white part in the middle, this Iceni, where it's written, I've had to turn it backwards to get it to match up. But basically right here is where Earth curve should be. But because it's very evident that you can see all the stripes on the boat and how it works out, you can even see the hull, you know. And this is a guy on the boat actually. This is a gentleman leaning down at the front, and he moves around on it. But yeah, this is the hull of the boat. How can it be possible on a globe Earth? All we're seeing is compression. Things are getting squashed. And I think that's down to the narrow viewing angle. You know, there's a limit to anything that we see. I think I was talking to you before about the human eye has an angular resolution of 0.02 of 1 degree.
Correct.
And funnily enough, if you took your eyeball out and was able to place it on a road, a flat surface, a complete flat surface, bearing in mind, and you look 3 miles away with this eyeball on the floor, you could have a 6-foot human stood 3 miles away, and you wouldn't be able to see that because his angular resolution at 3 miles away is 0.02 of a degree. Now it's quite interesting that, because that is the exact geometry of the shape of the Earth. If you think of it that way, if that how the globers would say it's the exact geometry of the shape of the Earth, 6 feet drop over 3 miles is the same as the angular resolution of the human eye, 0.02 of a degree.
Right. And that's exactly why we say they've hijacked perspective and called it curvature.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something we've been on about recently for the past year, I would say. If we go to some other images with compression, we've got the Stena line. This is an image that I took, 2 images actually, both that I took. One at a high elevation, which is the bottom one, and the lower elevation from 1 foot was this particular image. Now, they were both at the same distance. They were at 6.7 miles away, and basically we're seeing all of the boat in both images. And we should have lost some to Earth curve at 6.7 miles from 1 foot elevation, which would have been this top image. However, it's clear to see that we're seeing all of the boat. It's just that it's a little disjointed at the bottom. We've got the orange is clearly visible underneath the wording of the Stena line, and obviously this is evidenced here. Again, this is not possible on a globe. But look at the height difference. That's the most important part.
Yeah, it shows compression really well. And again, we haven't even started talking about tides and swell and how that's going to increase the amount that we can still see the red line underneath center line.
Exactly. And what I've done here is I've cropped out the top part of this 1 foot observation, and I've placed it exactly here. So it's scaled to width. You know, we know that it's scaled to width. So, and what's funny here is that the top of this boat here and the top there is lined up correctly. Same with the lifeboat is in the same location. So what we're saying is that everything in the wider viewing angle is retaining its angular size. You know, it's essentially the same. You can crop this out and it's the same. The problem starts to happen in that lower viewing angle. Things are getting smaller and and smaller and more compressed. Let me show you another image. Here we go. So let's, there we go. So what I've done is, in this particular time, is I've switched them around and I've lined them up again. The scale to width, the wide viewing angle retains its angular size, but in the lower viewing angle, the really compressed lower viewing angle, the camera's trying to get all that information in a very, very small amount of pixels. So it's compressing it. It has to. It's just compressing it. You're at such a low angle that it's trying to get as much data as it can and show you what it's seeing. And this is how it manifests itself on the camera. And you can clearly see that it's such a difference between this and this. In height-wise, anything below this red line is being compressed, and everything above this red line is retaining its angular size. So it's another reason why things start to disappear from the bottom up. In that narrow viewing angle, things are getting compressed. But a few waves in front of this, you wouldn't see it.
Absolutely not. No, especially those waves being much closer to you. And yeah, so things closer to the deck begin to disappear. They become compressed. Excellent evidence there.
And the wind turbines, I'll just go on to the wind turbines because seeing as we're on this particular topic right now, is that if compression is happening, and we're seeing compression happen, when we view wind turbines off in the distance and they say, oh, how come the blades are paddling the water, etc. Well, if we apply the same logic to what I've just showed you about compression, how things happen in the narrower viewing angle, what happens when we start to compress the lower part of the turbine? So I've compressed it by 50%. So just the lower part of the turbine has been compressed by 50% and keeping the angular size of the actual hub and the blades outside of the viewing angle, and look what happens. You can imagine when this blade's turning around, it's going to look like it's paddling. I can go a little bit further, squash it a little bit more, 67% compressed. You know, this is looking like reality. This is, you know, it's an explanation for why these things appear to show this kind of effect. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff. I want to show you red pill philosophy. You've heard of red pill philosophy?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Did you ever see his video that he released, Complete Flatness?
I don't recall. Is that the one with the hotel?
It's the whole peninsula in Florida. It's absolutely crazy. I'm just going to play a very small portion of it.
Sure.
And what we have here is we have a couple of little lights here. They're actually car lights. And as he pans around in a moment, I'll just put that on mute. As he pans around, you can still see the cars. See them all lined up along here.
Absolutely.
Right. So that actual ramp comes over the bridge. There's a bridge and then it carries on. This is only like 2 meters above sea level, right? So this entire road along here is about 2 meters above sea level. And he's going to pan across and he's going to show you this bridge. Sorry, he's just going to speed it up a little bit. So we're seeing this bridge, and the curve calcs is the interesting part here. So just take a note of this. We're looking at this this hump on the bridge, and we've got these cars that are going over. You can clearly see that it's not being loomed up. It's actually just it's an image that he's filming. Let me see if I can show you what that should look like. Is it on compression? I think it's under cool observations. One sec. Here we go. So I've scaled some cars to show you. This is the road surface down at the bottom, and this is 2 meters above actual sea level. Then we're seeing the cars drive across, and I've just put a little line into as a nominal height above what we're actually seeing. And all these cars that are scaled up is how much earth curve there should have been. Right? And on the next image, I've done it the same. I've scaled it up. This is how much earth curve should have been. So when you were looking at that bridge, right, that bridge, you shouldn't have seen it. You shouldn't have seen it, and you shouldn't have seen another 10 cars or so above that bridge. But We clearly saw it, and that's an issue for the globe. In fact, we
You
saw
think?
down to the roadside here.
This is why I think it's great sometimes to beg the question. Give it to them. Let them believe that they're on the sphere. Go ahead and bring out their sphere math, and when we put it together, it's clearly not what observations are showing.
Exactly,
doesn't
exactly.
meet test. It doesn't meet experiment.
And what they will come up with, they need it to be flat. And I mean that as in when they do their curve calcs, you see this flatness here. They're doing it across a flat surface. So, and a sphere surface is always flat with no waves or ripples on or anything like that either. I'll get to that point in a sec. Let me talk about the inferior mirage, because you said that you watched this video.
Yeah, let's go through this whole thing because I think this is one of the most telling observations that nobody can argue with, because this is done, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to the same location, you're placing your camera onto a railing, right? It's exactly the same railing in both cases. So there is no, his camera was too high, or it was on a tripod here, it was 3 feet, then it was 8 feet, then it was 10 feet. No, this is identical observation points, and I'll go ahead and let you talk through it.
Yeah, so this is me looking from basically anchored home, and I'm at the top of the railings. It's similar weather conditions. The only difference is that on one day we have an inferior mirage, on a different day we just see completely flat. So, for instance, right there we're looking at a lighthouse, then we're coming across and we're looking at a crane in the distance, the green thing. Then we've got the medical centre, Barrow Town Hall, which is the one with the clock on. Now we're coming up towards the BAE Systems buildings and Devonshire Dock Hall, etc. So all these buildings are clearly visible. And the post, the post is so important because this is a gem for me, because this post is just 4 miles away, and the buildings in the background are 18.1, 18.2. So 4 miles away, 18.2. If there's any kind of looming going on, you would expect to see a change in relative position between the buildings in the background versus the post in the foreground.
Absolutely.
We never see that. These buildings never change, and because I can go to the exact same spot every single time, I can always get these in shot, and they're always exactly in the same position. And this is because I want to try and drive home the fact that I can't find any kind of proof for looming. And that's another part of my research, which is the globe needed to be looming.
Right.
Well, if you do an observation, this year has been terrible for these inferior mirages just like this. And it's basically been like this the entire year. We also had no visibility for the most part as well. I mean, it's been crazy, crazy, crazy. Last year I'd done so many observations. By this time of the year, it was completely different. I'd done about at least 50 really great observations. This year with maybe one. But in each case, anyway, whenever we've got visibility, these buildings in the background are always in the same position relative to the post in the foreground. So on this day, we've got an inferior mirage. Clearly, everything's being miraged down on itself. This is the fold line. The globers like to use that term, the fold line. And in the past, Jeren, forgive me if you probably already know this, but the globers used to say that where you saw this fold line, that was where the curvature of the Earth was.
They used to say that, yeah.
And, that always bugged me, because when I came to this location, I was seeing days where it was really good and days when it was really, inferior mirage. And I thought, I know what I'm looking at. You can't say that I can see a truck on the shoreline one day, and then the next, when I see an inferior mirage, that's where Earth curve is. It just made absolutely no sense. So I basically turn around, show you my exact location, which is BLO 97 on Anchor Zone. And this is so that I've got a reference point every single time on every video.
Right.
People can always check it, you see. And
so
there's the railings.
Right. We can see the railing. And yeah, if people watch this carefully, I mean, this is devastating flat Earth evidence. Because if you watch closely, you'll see that it appears water is blocking that far shore. And again, if a glober went out on this day and did these observations, they would come back, they would play this and say this is proof of Earth curvature. We're not seeing the shore over there. We're not seeing any buildings. The water's clearly blocking it. It's blocking the bottom of the buildings, you could even say. It's blocking the bottom of that land there. It's not a lot. We're not seeing the shore. How come we don't see the shore? How come I can't see the beach on the other side? Therefore, the Earth isn't flat. So I'll let Ranty continue and tell you why that's terribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be called floaty land. What we're looking at there is something that the Globers used to come back with and termed it floaty land. And they would say that that's being loomed up.
Right. They
because
would say that's actually behind the curve, and due to looming, it's being lifted up, and we're seeing things higher than they actually are.
Yep. And here we have, obviously, a day without the inferior mirage, and we can clearly see everything. And this is from the exact same spot, exact same height above actual sea level. I'm going to just pause it at a few spots and show you on different occasions and compare them. I'll just pause that for a sec. Hopefully, there we go. So what we're seeing here, this is a truck. This is a truck on the shoreline.
Wow.
Obviously, we've got the sand down here. This is a truck on the shoreline, and that truck should be there, but it's beneath the inferior mirage. So on one day, you can see it, or I'm presuming it probably wasn't even here on this day, but if it had been, you wouldn't have seen it because it would have been behind the inferior mirage. Right. And you can see it's clearly the same spot. We've still got the two posts, the same land, etc. And let's just play the video again. And of course, obviously, all this land in the background, let me just tell you, well, everything that we're seeing here is completely flat. And if I go back to where that truck was, that truck, Earth curve calcs would say I shouldn't have seen the truck. That's just a simple shape of the Earth geometry thing that the Globers would say. Oh, and these buildings here, let's just go back to these. These buildings, this lighter piece of area here is actually the ocean. So the ocean goes around, it just looks a different colour because it's a narrower angle. Well, this is actually water, and this is buildings on the shoreline right down here. And Earth curve calcs at this distance say I think 50 feet should be hidden, even from this elevated position. So again, we shouldn't have even seen any of this water, none of these buildings, nothing.
Can you go back to Google Earth real quick just to show people what you're talking about? They might be confused by that water being behind the land, but I think if you show the Google Earth, there you go.
Yeah, sure.
There you go. So, show them that and they'll understand better.
So you want me to show what, sorry?
Just show, because you said the water was behind that land there, and from Google Earth you can see why. Just kind of show where you're
looking. Right, okay.
Right.
So, yeah, so over here, let's go for a direct line of sight. So we're crossing over the water,
right,
and then we've got this little peninsula of land here. It's like an outcrop. It comes across here. This is where the lighthouse is down here. So they've got the lighthouse.
There you go.
This is like sand dunes, sand banks, and then once we go past that, this is more water. So obviously this is more water in this location going across here.
Perfect.
But the line of sight means that you have to look over this. I think it's around about 40 feet high, these sand dunes. So basically it's cutting off quite, for instance, you wouldn't see the water in this spot here because it's right behind the sand dune.
Correct.
But by virtue of your angle, by the time that you get to like this spot here, say here, you're starting to see the water pick up. So we're seeing the water in this location, and then we're seeing these buildings down here. And we're looking at the distance to there is 17.17 miles. It's not a short observation.
Perfect.
Let's go back to the video. So yeah, so there's these sand dunes, these 40-foot high sand dunes, and there's the water in the background, the estuary, and there's those buildings in front of Devonshire Dock Hall.
And with the inferior mirage, you weren't even able to see those front sand dunes, really.
Yeah, everything was gobbled up. You couldn't see it. And what I'm finding is that, I mean, this isn't just the only occasion that this happens. The more I've looked into this, the more I've actually been able to bring up a whole bunch of other stuff that prove this exact point too. I'm hoping to get to that if you've got time, Jerry, and if you don't mind me waffling on for a little bit longer.
Nope, I got all day.
All right, cool. Because I've got some devastating points to show you. Here we go. Here we've got another screenshot of the two. So obviously this is the same lighthouse. It looks a little bit thinner on the day where it's got a bit of an inferior mirage, but essentially these two little white parts here are the chimneys of this house that's behind the sand dune. So we have a sand dune in the foreground, then we have the lighthouse sat behind it and the little house. And again, it's hidden. You know, this sand dune is all blocked off. You can't see it, and it looks like it's slightly stretched as well. But obviously, there's obstruction in the glober's eyes here. You know, that's all they care about is what, you know, when they see obstruction, that's it. It's Earth curve. There's no other explanation.
Yeah, no, they love obstruction. They're going to call it right away as that obstruction has to be the curvature of the Earth. But when we show this, they just get quiet.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, well, to be fair though, I mean, I have to say the globers have changed position recently in regards to the amount of data that I've put out about this specific topic. They're now actually starting to incorporate it in their own quote unquote ray tracing ray tracing programs to account for this, along with compression as well. It's another thing that they've jumped upon, and they're talking about it now. When I first started talking about this, I was the black sheep. You know, I mean, they laughed at me, and now essentially they're just like, okay, well, we're clearly seeing this stuff now. We need to explain it. We need to have an explanation for this. But things are going to get worse for the globe, believe you me. By the time this presentation's over, when you start understanding swell and wave heights and shoaling and stuff like that, it explains so much. It's so many observations. And it's devastating for the globe mathematics. It really is.
Yeah, my new favorite one is when when we have like Jose J.G. Gonzalez or these other people who are lowering lights at far distances and showing them disappear as they get towards the deck. And these guys want to say, oh, well, the floor is uneven and that's why it's being blocked. But they don't understand that the ocean is uneven and that we've got waves and we've got swell. So that exact explanation is our explanation for why you don't see the shore on some days, and they just don't get it. They'll argue when they think they've got the point that covers their opinion. They'll use it, but they don't realize what they're doing. That it makes it clear that, yeah, well, nobody's saying that the floor is uneven. You guys are saying that, but clearly the ocean is uneven. There's proof of that. That's why we have swell. That's why we have tides, and yet they don't realize that that's just devastating to their point.
Yeah, and it's surprising that it's never really been spoken about a lot of in the past, really. And to be fair, it took me a long time to actually think about it too. I have to say, but once you look into it, you realize, and other people have got in touch with me and said that they go out and they have their own boats and stuff, and that they do need to take into account all this kind of stuff, and it makes absolute sense for them, for these waves and the swell to be accounted for. For instance, you've heard of Wolfie.
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, let's have a look at, it's not any of Wolfie's video, but I want to see Rottnest Island, because this is where he does his observations from. So this is a swell forecast for Rottnest Island right now, today. And if we hover down here, it gives you the swell heights. This isn't including the wave height that goes on top of that, the wind-driven heights. This is just the swell. So we've got all these kind of heights here, but basically, if you've got a 2-meter swell there, right? So on Saturday morning at 2 a.m., you're going to have a 2-meter swell.
Wow.
What that means is that the amplitude of that is obviously half of that. So you've got half of it's the amplitude and half of it's the trough. So you split it in half. So this 2-meter swell is essentially around about 4 feet of wave height. And that's just the swell height. Now, you're not even taking into account the wave heights on top of that, the wind-driven wave heights. So this is what they won't tell you about this kind of stuff, is that when he's doing an observation there and he's showing a boat, being obstructed, and he's given an arbitrary height of, let's say, 5 feet above sea level. Well, once you start accounting these things, and you're looking in it, well, straight away, he swells at 4 foot. If it's a breezy day, you could have another 4 or 5 feet of wind-driven waves on top, and suddenly you're having to look over these things,
Yeah, no, and everybody should check out the video I've done about Wolfie and the Bathurst Lighthouse, which this is the exact explanation there when you're talking about that same location and he's just claiming again that there's a little bit of obstruction and claims it right away as Earth curvature.
Here's another observation from obviously the same day. On this particular day, on the right-hand side, the waves were around about 1.5 to 2 feet in height, and on this day it was completely flat. We're actually seeing the lighthouse behind the post in the foreground. I got to the exact same spot, and I tried to film the lighthouse again on a day when it was just, my observational height was around about 1 foot again. This is an observation of 1 foot, so I got down to 1 foot again. And as you can see clearly, with just a few waves in the foreground, an entire lighthouse in the background, and that's the lighthouse in the background behind this post, is obscured. So the height of that lighthouse, you're talking 69 feet till its focal point. So this 1 foot wave or 2 foot wave in the foreground is blocking out a lighthouse that's 69 feet high in the distance. Here we've got a video that the Globers like to portray as showing Earth curvature. Basically, I did a time-lapse video of a boat basically just disappearing into the distance, and I claimed it as flat Earth proof. The Globers continue to say that it's proof of Earth curve, whereas nothing is of the sort at all. And they lie about it. They don't have the integrity to talk about an inferior mirage. And what I'm going to show you here is the same video, same part on the video a bit later on. But clearly we have an inferior mirage going on here. Clearly, where my cursor is now is where the fold line is. This is where the fold line is exactly. We have a massive inferior mirage. Now, if you think about the presentation that I've just done about the buildings in the distance and how the bottom of that, where the truck was, for instance, the truck would have been hidden. Well, this is the same thing. The bottom of this boat is hidden behind this inferior mirage. Now, what causes the inferior mirage? It's still an ongoing investigation, but essentially we've got so many different observations where we can prove that what we're looking at here is blockage just caused by the inferior mirage and not by Earth curve. Let me go on to the next slide here. You can easily see the inferior mirage. You've got the white repeating down up here, which is the white part up there. And then the fold line is right in the middle. So Conspiracy Cats is one for this. He refuses to acknowledge the existence of the inferior mirage in his videos when he puts things out about this observation. So it's just dishonesty on his part, because if people are in this for the investigation, they would acknowledge that, okay, yes, we can see a fold line here. We can see it. And we appreciate the investigation that you've done into this research. And yeah, it's got some merit. And then they need to go and look into this. But they don't do that.
No, totally.
It's quite funny. Here we have some different boats that I filmed in the different stages of inferior mirage. This is what I nicknamed Barracuda boat, because it looked like a bit like a barracuda. And we've got what appears to be a mouth at the front. Obviously the boat doesn't look like that. And we've got the clear inferior mirage running through the middle, but it looks cool. It looks cool. Right, next image, next slide. Oh, you love this video. Have you seen this one, Jaron?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, so my observational height, now, if you've seen my work before, you know that I go and I measure all the steps, and I've got the inches and heights and everything like that, and I throw tape measures over, and I've got the exact height above sea level, etc. Well, I was basically 25.5 feet above sea level when I took this particular video, right? So it is part of the video, and I've been doing a time lapse of the buildings of Barrow, and I hadn't seen this boat. This boat, it had a massive inferior mirage on it, and on the buildings. And when I went up to the top after I'd finished filming, I saw this boat, and I was like, where did that come from? Where on earth did that boat come from? Now, this is like a 90-foot high boat. Where did it come from? How did it manage to pass in front of me? And I'll show you where I was filming from, and I'll show you where its actual spot was. So let's go to Google Earth. Right, so I'll just show you where I was filming from again. I was filming from these steps yet again, down here, and I've actually put a line in to the exact position in a minute where that bolt actually goes through, and I'll show you where that was calculated, because this is the routes that these boats take. So they have a very narrow channel that they have to follow, otherwise they'll get beached. So this is the routes in and the routes out, and it's this general location here. So the distance to the boat as I was filming it at 25.5 feet above actual sea level was 7.13 miles, I believe. It's not that one. I want this line, I think it is. Properties, and if we go to the measurements, yeah, oh no, that's not it. It's this, where is it? That one. Properties, and if we go to the measurements, 7.13 miles away. So we know for a fact that this boat, when I'm filming it from this observational height, was 7.13 miles away. If I show you that, how that works out on Google Earth, on the curve calculator, let's go over here. I think I've already got it put in. Yeah, 7.13 miles, 25.5 feet in elevation above actual sea level. Means that there should have been basically 1.3 inches of hidden. Now, bearing in mind that this boat is 90 feet tall, and we're talking about 1 inch of hidden, so that boat should have been hidden by 1 inch, and clearly it wasn't. Hang on, let me get the video up. That's this one. So I'm just going to play the video a tad, and you can see this massive inferior mirage. Very cool. But the coolest part comes in a moment when I scroll through. I'll show you my exact location. Hang on. I'll show you my exact location. So here I am on the rails. I then go down the steps, and it's 25 steps down to where I actually stand. And each of these steps are 7 inches, and I'm actually 8 feet above sea level at the bottom. So I was able to calculate pretty accurately my exact height above sea level. And what we see in a minute is quite devastating for the globe. So I'm just going to play this little portion here. And when I pan back through, you're going to see 2 boats in a moment. And both of them have an inferior mirage on. And let me pause it in a sec so that I get the exact frame. There we go. So we have a white boat in the foreground, which is a very small fishing boat. And in the background, this is that boat that we were seeing from up there. Can you see how much is hidden? Right. You know, you can't see any of that in the distance. But this is killer. This is killer. This is so cool. Let's go to, where is it? This one. This is the image, right? So I've already taken a snapshot of the image, and what we're going to do now is we're gonna put a line in, right? Let's do it quite narrow. Let's do it at 3 and do it in a bright colour yellow. So we're going to put the inferior mirage line in for this boat in the foreground here. So that runs right through the centre there. So let's just put that line in there. Okay. And what we realised then is that the inferior mirage on the boat in the background happens higher up.
2 curves.
2 curves, yeah, exactly. And this is so devastating for the Globers because it cannot be Earth curve. This inferior mirage now, I mean, just with this one observation, I mean, there's so many more now. Other people are looking into this, which is great because you have all these different reference points further and further away that show an incrementally higher fold line the further away you go. So in the past, when the Globers were saying, yeah, that's right there is where the Earth curve is. Well, what's causing this one here then? You know, right. What's causing that one? Can't have two curves, Jaron.
Double curve.
And of course, you know, obviously that's the image of the boat as it's actually looking out of from 25.5 feet above actual sea level.
Right. And the difference is just
this is the lower one.
Up and down the stairs, right? It was really just the difference there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's clearly like I say, it's clearly the atmosphere in some way reacting. There's something going on that's causing this inferior mirage, but it certainly isn't Earth curve. So anytime that you see this kind of blockage, now you can understand that we're not actually seeing Earth curve. That isn't what we're seeing. We're seeing blockage, but it isn't Earth curve. It's some kind of effect with the atmosphere. Hopefully we'll get an answer to that at some point. Perspective is something that I took this image just a couple of days ago, actually, because Globers still don't understand this very simple point, is that things get smaller in the distance. And when we're talking about...
They don't get it, man. They don't get that simple point.
So I'm standing in the road right now, as you can see. And I'm filming down the road, and it's a great shot because I'm able to get these lights on both sides. And obviously things are getting smaller in the distance. They're not actually changing their actual sizes, but their angular size is absolutely changing, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And at some point, things will become too small to be seen. And there was a globe earther that put a challenge out to flat earthers recently with a monetary value to try and debunk him that said that the Earth curve calculators don't include perspective. And he says that they do include perspective. And I'm like, well, no, they don't at all. They don't include perspective. Because if they did, they were, if you had, I did some kind of calculation, and I said, basically, if you was stood at Hoy Lake trying to film Blackpool Tower, and you could only see, I think it was the top 4 feet of Blackpool Tower, would you be able to see it? Even if you had a great camera, would you actually be able to see it? And the answer was clearly no. You wouldn't be able to see anything at 4 feet from 29.3 miles away. It's impossible. It's too small to be seen. And I got to that point today, a couple of days ago when I did another observation. If you just bear with me. It was on diffraction. So basically what I did is I took this image, so it's unzoomed. Hang on, I don't want to open it in that one. 1 second. Open with photos, there we go. Right, okay, so here we go. So I took this image of the skyline basically, and what we have over here is the wind turbines in the distance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus in this general area, and I'm looking at this cloud here, and I'm going to zoom in on it and zoom on it and zoom on it, and then take incremental images of it. So this is in 4K, and obviously when we zoom in, even in 4K, you're still getting some outline of these wind turbines, but you can't really make any definition out. You're talking that at that distance, the camera is trying to get all those pixels and all that information and each information and try and make an image out of it. Right. And there's so much detail to put in on these turbines, but so few pixels to do it. So it just gives smudges. So this is an excellent example of actual diffraction in motion. What you're seeing here is the diffraction limit of the camera, because it can't give you all the data of these turbines.
Can't resolve it all.
Yeah, it just can't do it. It'll give you a rough, very, very rough outline, but that's it. And then obviously when I zoom in, this is me focusing on that cloud again, so I'm in exactly the same spot. And obviously if I zoom in now, we can pick up a bit more data and stuff. And I focus in on this little thing here. It's like a little smudge at the minute. But in a moment when I go in a bit closer and zoom in again, zoom in on that one, zoom in a bit more. Can you see how it's starting to take definition? You're starting to actually see something.
Absolutely.
And if we go back or go back a few more images. Hang on.
And that's a great picture too, to show that the turbines have the bendy arms when they hit that atmosphere. You can see them over like that one.
Oh,
there.
here.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that it's trying to figure it out. You can somewhat judge where these inferior mirages are and how far away things are by. Are they higher? Is this lower? Where's the inferior mirage starting on this one? Because that turbine blade is starting to bend here, it appears higher up in the shot. So you'd be able to place this nearer and these turbines further away. Mm-hmm. By virtue of where this inferior mirage starts on them. So what I did is I basically just opened up, where are we?
Because as a general thumb, the further away the item is, the further up the inferior mirage would be, correct?
Yes, yeah. So what we had here is I was zoomed into a point where you could actually see it. It's a bit of a smudge. And then obviously each incremental part time I get nearer and nearer, we're getting more definition on what we're trying to see. But the Globers would say that, okay, well, they're not accounting for this. This diffraction isn't. They're not accounting for this in their calculations, and it's detrimental. It really is, because they want to have things in actual sizes still. So you could have a building that's 40 feet high, and it's still 40 feet high at 10 miles away.
Right.
But it's not, because its angular resolution at that distance is very minute, it's very tiny. So they are hijacking perspective. See, that's all I wanted to speak about on diffraction. Here we go about swell and wave shoaling. This is really, really interesting information for anybody that goes out and does observations. And it's so devastating to the Globers right now. This is worse for them than anything that I've showed up to now. It really is. And I'll tell you for why. So I'm going to look at some of these individual parts of what I've written down here. We've got the amplitude of a wave. Now, the amplitude is everything that's above this red line. So that would be the center point of the wave height. So if you had a wave height that was 4 feet, obviously the center line would be in the middle, and anything above that center line would be higher than where your feet are at the shoreline. So if you've got your camera tripod set up at the shoreline, or you're holding it freehand, and you're holding it and you're a 6 foot high guy and you're taking an image of something in the distance, right? And then you come home and then you plug into the Earth curve calculator and you say that you are 6 feet above sea level, right? You're 6 feet above where your feet are touching the shoreline, right? That's where you are. But you're not 6 feet above sea level, because when you start taking into account things like the wind-driven waves, then you take into account the sea state, which is so important too, and obviously you've got obstruction in front of you. You've literally got, if you've got a 4 foot wave in front of you, 2 foot of that is amplitude. So that's 2 foot that's higher than your feet are at the shoreline. So when you plug into the Earth curve calculator, you're 6 feet above sea level. Well, no, you're not, because you're actually looking across at the deck that is 2 feet less. So you're actually only 4 feet above sea level. So it's narrowing this the curve calcs. It's narrowing the curve calcs. Right. When it used to be standard refraction, it's going to have to be more than standard refraction.
Right. On top of the fact that things get smaller with the distance, and then they'll be very easily blocked by that amplitude of that wave.
Oh, exactly. And here we have the WMO sea state code, which takes into account things like the swell and the wave and the winds and stuff. So if you've got a sea state code of, say, 4, right, the wave heights are anywhere between 4 feet and 8 feet, right? So between 4 feet and 8 feet in height. So if it was an 8 foot height wave, then 4 foot of that is amplitude. 4 feet of that is amplitude. So if you're 6 feet above the water at the shoreline, you're only 2 feet above the waves that are breaking in front of you. Right. And adding on to that is that the sea state, take into account, I think it's 1 in 8 waves will be higher than the given height. So, and that's so that if you're a mariner out to sea and you're in your boat, right, you can expect that most of the waves will be between 4 and 8 feet, but 1 in 8 of those waves will be higher than the highest given wave of the, so if it's an 8 foot, it could be a 10 foot wave.
Right.
1 in 8 of it. And because you're doing it as an observation, you're looking across thousands of waves. Yeah, so tons. You have to look across the highest point.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah, I would have always taken the lowest wave or a midpoint wave, but you're absolutely right that they say that 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 are bigger than that highest number. And therefore, yes, if you're looking across, and I think Life is Short has done a great presentation on how many of those waves you're looking at. If you're looking out at, for instance, where that post is that you see out there, that you said was what, 4 miles away?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so think of how many waves you're seeing in between you and that post. You're seeing probably hundreds, if not thousands, and therefore many of those are over that 8-foot mark. If that
Oh
were
yeah.
if that were the sea state code of the day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Here we've got some rough idea of wind speeds, and this is the possible wave height in meters. This is just for wind-driven waves, so that's not swell. So when I was showing you that chart before, that's where Wolfie does his observations, we've got a 2.1 meter swell there. That isn't taking into account these wind speeds.
Right.
Right. So when you got all these other things with the sea state, etc., just in a 25 to 30 knot wind, so it's basically what, 27 miles an hour wind, you're looking at anywhere between 2.5 and 4 meter wave heights.
Wow.
Now that's massive.
That's huge.
Yeah, that is huge. I also want to talk about shoaling. And this was a phrase that I just grabbed about shoaling, and it explains it quite well, actually. It basically says, in shallow water and parallel depth contours, non-breaking waves will increase in wave height as the wave packet enters shallower water. Now, what that means is that in this, right, I've just done a mock-up here. I did this diagram, and we have a boat in the distance, and I'm assuming that obviously we're trying to film this boat from the shoreline. Well, if this is the contour of the terrain underneath the water that you're trying to film across, so let's suppose in that this area here is 30 or 40 meters deep, and then when you get to this location here, it drops off. You've got a drop off.
Wow, that's exactly what the contours are like out at the Monterey Bay when I go film there. It's a huge drop off, and I love this. I love what you're about to explain because it makes so much sense.
Well, I'll show it you on. Let's see if I've got that image ready. Hang on. Just wait. It's not going to work. Hang on. Where are we? There we go. So I've drawn some little lines in here because it just looks a bit cooler. What we're looking at is when the water's pushing in from the tides coming in and receding both ways, you get this thing called wave shoaling, and it's basically as the water from the deep goes into the shallows, it starts to encounter friction on the shoreline at the bottom, and it slows down. So
right.
it's getting friction. It's starting to slow down. And you've still got the incoming never-ending push of the tide, and it's pushing and pushing and pushing. And what it's saying is that it breaks in this location, and you get a vertical increase in height in this location, right? So it is a vertical obstruction of water.
Right, it'll absolutely push that up.
Yeah, and it's relentless. The tide's pushing in, the tide's receding. In both cases, you get this shoaling, and it's pushing up, and it will cause physical obstruction. So if you're trying to view a boat and you see a boat that has half of the boat missing and there's purely water obstructing it, not an inferior mirage, but water, real water, you need to look at the area where that boat was filmed. Now, again, Wolfie, I'm going to refer back to Wolfie because he's done many videos in this location. Where's that gone? Google Earth Pro. So I'm going to go to Rottnest Island, and I'm going to show you, this is where he does his observations from, and I want to show you the terrain underneath the water in this location. And it's really quite interesting, really. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you can already see you've got some lighter colour areas here of ocean, and then obviously you've got some darker areas here, and then you've got some real drop-offs. And in the bottom right-hand corner here, you can see elevations, ELEV. So if I get my line here, and let's just put it anywhere, I'll put it there, and then I'm going to come out. And basically we're at 15 miles away now, and we're staying constantly about 45, 50 meters in depth, right? So let's see where it starts to drop off. So it's starting to drop off about there. So around about 23 miles away, it starts to drop off. So I'm just going to save that, and then I'm just going to put another line in, and we're just going to go out just say 3 or 4 miles. So let's just go out, where's 4 miles? Right, so I've just gone out 4 miles there. Now the elevation there is 200 meters in depth. So it's gone over just a very short distance over 4 miles. It's gone from minus 200 meters to minus 70. So it's clearly showing a drop off there. And obviously, when I go out a little bit further, just to here, it's already at 400 meters depth. Now that's showing an exact replica of this sort of image where we've got pretty shallow for quite a long way, and then we've got a massive drop off. And people that live in Australia and New Zealand and stuff like this, where this is absolutely prominent in their location, they have these massive drop offs, like you were just saying, Jaron, in your location too, and you get this shoaling effect. You absolutely get this shoaling. It's a vertical lift of the water in these regions.
Absolutely amazing, yeah, and it makes so much sense. I don't know if you want to go over to the Monterey Bay, but I'm just thinking, and I don't have it up, so I can't really do it.
Look.
But go to Google Earth and go to the Monterey Bay, and I'm thinking that there's a huge crevice that almost separates the two.
Monterey, California, USA.
Yeah, you'll see the Monterey Bay there if you head over there. So you're going to see a pretty good pocket. It's about 25 miles across, right? So that whole bay there. But look at the drop off. See that cut in the middle there?
Yeah.
So, a lot of the observations that we're trying to do across there are actually looking. So if you kind of see that first 360 marker straight down, right at the, maybe a little to the right there. No.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I see.
Right where it says 360 there. Yeah. If you kind of picture looking across there to Santa Cruz, which is just straight across, you're actually looking across that huge. Yeah. Keep going up that way. So you're looking across that huge crevice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is going to cause a lift of the water there. Yep.
We've got all this water pushing through in these little caverns. Now we know that in my location where we get these tidal bores, that's just where it's being pushed into an estuary. You can imagine looking at these deep caverns down here where, you're talking 600 meters in depth, and right next to it, you're talking it's 200 meters in depth, and 80 meters in depth. You've got all that water pushing through underneath and trying to squeeze up. And then when it gets to this part here, it's going to just pop up, and it has to push up.
Right.
It's got nowhere else to go.
Nowhere else to go.
And they can be many meters in height. Many meters.
Well, I've
it's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it. Just looking across, doing those observations with the infrared camera and seeing the difference one day to the next is huge. That's why I think a lot of I love the ocean observations, but at the same time, I think sometimes we have a better bet of finding a nice lake. The problem is finding a good lake that's as wide as we would want it. One of those lakes that I've been looking at is in Florida, Lake Okeechobee. There's some distances across lakes of 25 plus miles.
Wow. Well, this location where I film in, as you can see, it's all very light blue. It only ever drops to around about 35, 40 meters in depth. We're talking 50 miles here.
Wow.
In this region. And this is why I always seem to get inferior mirages. And it's the same if you look across a lake. Whenever you look across lakes, you get these inferior mirages because they aren't affected by any tides or anything.
Right, so it's just
for the most part.
That still water and then the still air above it.
Yeah, and the swell here is relatively non-existent. We get a bit of swell. I think at most it's ever only around about a foot in swell. Well, if you compare that to Wolfie in his Rottnest Island location, where you've got 2 meter swells, here we only get 1 foot swells. So it's quite obvious why in this location I'm filming inferior mirages for the most part, or complete flatness. So I can film it completely flat from one side to the other, or I get inferior mirages. And it just seems that whenever Wolfie films, he will film a boat being obscured by physical water. Well, it's explained when you realise the topography of the area that we're filming in.
Right.
In my location, we don't get a lot of swell, so when it's really calm, it's really flat, and we can see a long way. I might be able to show you a couple of. Have I got some images up? Just bear with me and see if I've got any couple of really good images on. Oh yeah, so here we go. 3702. This is a pretty cool one. So this was from 1 foot in elevation, right? Literally, I was holding it around my ankles. It was the first time I ever actually got down and dirty, really. I didn't actually get dirty, I just got down. It was after this observation that it encouraged me to actually start laying on my belly and digging holes in the sand and getting down to around about 1 inch above sea level.
Right.
But on this particular occasion, this was literally at 1 foot above sea level. I was right next to the water, and I put the camera down at my ankles and was trying to, take an image, looking in the viewfinder that I'd turned up, so it was facing upwards. And this is the imageries that I caught. And obviously, this is Devonshire Dock Hall, the buildings, etc. And just everything is visible. Everything is visible. This medical centre, Barrow Town Hall, just everything. And all of this should have been gone. You shouldn't see any of these buildings from this distance. Everything that we're seeing here in the Globers model was an inferior mirage. Sorry, not an inferior mirage. Was being loomed up. Everything. And the further we go across, we're even seeing that small land that's only around about 30 foot high over here. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. This is unexplained on a globe. I've never had somebody come back and tell me an explanation for this, and I have put the word out many times to the Globers. I've challenged everybody to try and debunk this observation. They can't. And not only have I got images of this, but I actually have a video of it too. So it was just an incredibly great day. You can see how flat the water was. I mean, these little waves in the foreground were only maybe an inch or 2 inches, just little splashes. In fact, I didn't even see it glistening that much. It was incredibly flat.
Right, you don't see the what they call white caps, is what we get. Well, we get a lot of those over here in the Monterey Bay.
Oh yeah, well the thing is, when you get white caps, they're anywhere up between 4 and 8 feet in height. So the waves are already at 4 to 8 feet in those whenever they start white capping, because the wind speed there has to be, I think it's 23 to 28 kilometers per hour, or is it? Yeah, I think it's kilometers per hour. Or not.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I think it's about 10, 15 mile per hour winds that usually will cause that over here. But again, it could be different. It's just going to be based on the fact that we're in a bay causes that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, as well, if you're in a bay, you've got that tidal effect, that real tidal effect as well. I mean, it'd be interesting to know if you've got any tidal bores that happen in your location as well. It might be a location that does that. But yeah, this is just a great observation. None of these buildings should be seen, but clearly we're seeing them, and the Globers would try and say this is looming, but when the post is great, because I can go back to that post and I can always see the post, and I'm filming it, and it never changes its position to this building in the distance. So we're not getting any looming. And if there was looming happening, let's beg the question and say there was looming going on.
Even though neither one of us have ever seen evidence of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've put a challenge out. I've said to them, look, go and stand on a hill or put something on a hill and film it for a year or two. And, hopefully if there's looming, you're going to see many times that it pokes its head up across the other side of the hill.
Right.
But, it's ridiculous to even think about that. But there's no cut-off point here. There's no join on this mountain where the looming stops. It's not like this is being loomed up and then suddenly it stops. This is just a very clear, solid background of the mountain in the distance. So in that case, they've come back and said, well, it must be that all the mountains being loomed up as well.
Do you know anybody that lives over on the other side, or could you ever send somebody over there with a mirror? What do you think about the mirror observations that have been done over here in the Monterey Bay? And we've got another one coming up. I think I'm going to end up going down there this weekend, actually, June 2nd, heading to Salton Sea again to do some more mirror observations there. What do you think about those?
I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had somebody that lived in a location that I knew, I would love to work with them and have them go to the lighthouse, for instance, and just film from just shine the mirror at me from the lighthouse. It would be exceptional. I'm sure there's somebody watching that could perhaps help out.
Yeah, contact Ranty. What is the best way to get a hold of you as far as that goes too? Because I think those are amazing observations, and they really just put the globe to bed, because you cannot see a mirror, you cannot see a reflection of the sun if there's any obstruction. And so if there's an obstruction of when they did the Monterey Bay one, and they were looking across 13 miles, there should have been a 40-foot hump. Also, we'll go ahead and give your email address before I get past that point.
Yeah, sure. It's Ranty, Ranty, at rantyflatearth.com.
Okay,
Dead
awesome.
easy.
Very easy. And then, do you find any significance to the fact that for some reason Muck West removed his bulge from the calculator?
Um, yeah, I've had some dealings with Mick West in the past. He said to me one time, he said, if you go up to the top of Blackpool Tower, so obviously it's Blackpool Tower, if you go up to Blackpool Tower, you can take an iPhone up there, take an image of the horizon, and you will see the curvature of the Earth. Right? I kid you not. Right? I took screenshots of it. I asked him to clarify it. He agreed. He clarified it. Yes, you'll definitely see it. And so, of course, duly, I went up to the top of Blackpool Tower and did as he asked. I did it with an iPhone. I did it with my P900, and then I made a nice little video about it.
Oh boy! So he hasn't heard Neil deGrasse say that even at 128,000 feet, that shit is flat.
Yeah. The guy's. He's obviously some kind of shill. I think he can't.
Well,
I mean,
at the highest level, I don't even know if you call that a shill necessarily. He's like flat out in your face about it. It's not even a shill. It's beyond shillery when you've got a website that just basically says there's no such thing as any conspiracy. No conspiracy has ever existed. Everything is as it presents itself. But nobody's ever gotten together to collude or to get together to conspire to go against you in any way. So yeah, that guy's a joke. But I think that it's telling to me that this Monterey Bay mirror observation. I have a video on my channel about it, talking about the importance of it, and we looked into the bulge factor, which is what is so devastating when you're looking across 13 miles. If you're able to see somebody who's clearly sitting at the water level with a mirror, who's shining a sunset back at you at the camera level, and the camera's only 3 feet off the water level on the other side, and there's supposedly some sort of 30-foot or 40-foot bulge of water in between you two. And I tell people all the time, go out with a mirror tomorrow, go out tonight, go out today. You have to have the sun out, but go out with a mirror and have somebody shine a mirror into your face and notice when you see the reflection, when you see that bright sun reflection. Now obstruct that mirror with anything. Doesn't matter if it's a car, a book, a piece of paper. The second that mirror becomes obstructed, the second you cannot see that actual physical mirror, you cannot see the sun reflection anymore. So when we're seeing it across huge bodies of water, that's absolutely devastating to the globe, because how are we able to see a reflection if there's a 40-foot bulge or hump of water in between us? And I think it's interesting that after we started pointing that out, the calculator, the curve calculator on Metabunk, which used to include the bulge factor, no longer, now that number is just not there. So why did he remove it?
Yeah, he's fiddled around with it quite a lot, I think.
Yeah.
It used to be where it had the geometric drop at the top. Now he has its standard refraction at the top immediately, and then
Right.
the geometric underneath. And that's very dishonest, because it's essentially already supposing that he's on a globe.
Yeah, the
760,
terrestrial refraction is such a joke. And they're putting
it's really dishonest.
Right, just an arbitrary 76R. We're just going to put this number here, and it's going to help explain why you're seeing things several miles further than you should be able to. Next thing we know, it'll be 86R. It's just going to keep increasing. They're going to say, oh, that's the new refraction number, as we be able to see further. The only problem for me is that I think that they've gotten to the point now where we're pretty much, with infrared, you're going to be able to see further, but you're always going to have the atmosphere in your way. So, as I've said before, you're never going to see 500 miles away. No matter, even if it's the clearest day possible, and that just happens because of the way that the atmosphere is. And I saw a news article the other day talking about how suddenly we're able to see these mountains around Los Angeles that we weren't able to see in the 80s and 90s, and the reason for that is because of they claim reduced smog. But still, the whole point is that you can't see far distances because of the atmosphere. They like to tell people that it's the curvature of the Earth, and they don't pay attention to the fact that things get smaller with distance. But clearly, we're never going to see from one side of, say, from the east coast of North America or the east coast of America to Spain. You can't even see 500 miles, let alone trying to look across 3,000 miles of atmosphere. It just works like a pane of glass. You can see through 1, you can see through 50, you can see through 1,000, but if you keep adding panes of glass, eventually you're going to distort the view, and it doesn't matter which telescope you have or which camera. Sure, an infrared camera is going to allow you to see further than a regular camera, but even a telescope cannot cut through the haze. It's just that's the atmosphere in your way.
Yeah, exactly. Atmospheric, you know, the atmosphere is our worst enemy. But again, if you look at this, there's no atmosphere included in this.
Right.
You know, where's the inferior mirage? Where's you know, where's the fog, the mist, the spray, the evaporation? Where's it, you know, that's happening over water? Where's all this included in this? It's not. It's literally, and this is why I said that they need it to be flat for these results to work, because let's do some calculations here. So going back to the swell and the wave heights, etc. So let's have a look, swell versus wave. So obviously you've got swell, and then obviously because it's a wave, they want to talk about waves as being chop. So you've got two different things. You've got swell and you've got chop. Both are basically waves, but they're different. So imagine you've got a giant turtle, which is the swell. So you've got the shape of this turtle shell, big sort of like wave shape. And then you've got little turtles on top, little baby turtles that you're just placing across the top of that particular turtle. So you've got two things. You've got the swell, the big swell, the 2 meter or the 3 meter swell of the big turtle. And then all these little turtles on top are the chop. So that's to be added on top. So you've got swell, then you've got the chops. And that's why if you're ever at the shoreline, you'll see a few little waves lap up, and then you'll get a big one. Because the big one, that's the swell, you know, that's the one that'll splash up and get you wet. And quite often I've done filming before, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm safe here, I can do this. You get a little wave, and then you get a big one that just drenches you.
Right. Yeah, my wife got her phone soaked one time. She was just looking, thought she was fine, and before you know it, here came a big wave and just completely wiped her out. Can you real quick go back to the you were just showing the curve calculator? The Metabug one, because I'm just going to show what I'm talking about here so people don't think we're making this up. Okay, so if everybody looks at the screen right now, you'll see he's got 7.13 miles. Viewer, go ahead and give me those exact numbers. I'm going to punch them in on. Oh wait, I can't punch them in. Sorry, I'm going to show you a video. Anyway, so you can see there that it says with standard refraction, refracted horizon, and I just said that he got rid of bulge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the screen to hopefully what's going on here. Yep. So I'm going to, what do I want to do here? YouTube, there we go. It's a little bit off-centered, but this is from my video about the Monterey Bay observation. Shoot, hold on, let me move it over a little bit so you can see because it's blocked. There we go. All right, so this is from one of my videos, but you'll see that this is the same, and I'll flip back to keep your screen up, Ranty. Yeah, well, yes, keep that screen up. So you'll see here that now it says refracted horizon, refracted drop, refracted hidden. But if I flip back to my video that was done a few months ago, you'll see here that there was horizon and then the bulge. So you'll see right there the bulge of 30 feet, which is the bulge that we should have. But he got rid of that number. There's no longer bulge written there. So clearly you can see that that's been changed. Well, anytime somebody makes a change like that, it tells you something. You know, to me, it's obvious that it's telling us that there's a problem. He didn't want that bulge number there anymore. And again, if we flip back over to Ranty's current thing, you can see that the bulge is hidden. It's not there anymore. So I think. And
can you also see where he switched it around? It's in a switchy brew. It used to be geometric results with the top one.
Yep.
And then standard refraction was underneath.
I'll show that.
Now he auto defaults to the standard refraction.
Right, so I'll show that again. So you'll see the one screen that's on the screen now says with standard refraction first. That's the one that's current. And if I flip it back to my old video, you'll see that it used to be ignoring refraction first, standard refraction on the bottom. And of course, there is no bulge involved in the standard refraction because the bulge would remain the same. Yet, when I'll flip it again, oops, not there, and we'll flip it again, and you'll see that now he's gotten rid of the bulge, even though it should be down there still. It's a geometric fact. It's a geometric calculation, but it's been completely removed, and they've pushed standard refraction to the top. So certainly telling, and if people don't want to think that's telling, just to get rid of that bulge. And again, I did a video making a point that you cannot see if there's any kind of obstruction at all, and then lo and behold, he removes it from the calculations. If that doesn't tell you something, the problem is if there's a bulge between you and a location across the water and you're able to see the reflection of a mirror, it's impossible to do on a globe. Period. End of story. You want to keep believing that you live on a spinning rock in space? Hey, be my guest. Go ahead. Sorry to get off on a tangent. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just wanted to go back to this the waves and the shoaling and stuff. Here, if we look at an image here, swell. it's going to give you, obviously, this light blue line right down here. So this light blue line there is where your feet would be at the shoreline. So that's the midpoint of the wave. So if you look at the swell, you've got this ocean swell out to sea. You've got obviously you've got the amplitude of it, which is higher than where your feet are at the shoreline. And then obviously as the wave starts, as the swell starts pushing in, it starts to slow down, starts to have friction with the topography of the land underneath, forcing the water and this swell to go higher. As you can see, it's going higher,
Has nowhere
and then
else to
obviously
go.
eventually the wave breaks.
Right.
Now all of this is blockage, and when I say that the globers need it to be flat, they want you to work from a flat plane. They don't want you to work from reality. So that's why whenever they put your curve calcs in and stuff like this, you have to be measured with your feet above the water as it touches the shoreline.
Right.
But that isn't the case.
No.
Because once you start plugging this swell and the wave heights in, then you start to get some really damning things for the globe. And I'm going to just give you some idea of that. Let's do a 10-mile observation here, Jaron. And let's just say that you're stood at the shoreline and you're a 6-foot human, right? And you're holding it to your eye line, so you're thinking you're 6 feet above sea level, right? So let's just go with their refracted hidden. They're going to say that 26 feet is hidden, right? So you see a boat in the distance and it looks like 26 feet is hidden. Let's just say that for instance, right?
Okay.
But then what you realize is that, okay, well, you've got a 3-foot swell and 2-foot waves in your way. So you're looking over them. So essentially you're not 6 feet above sea level. Sea level is a lot higher. So you're only 1 foot above the actual water. And then what you look at is that the refracted hidden is now 43 feet. And that doesn't match up to the globe model at all.
Right.
Because your observation doesn't show that amount of hidden because you're seeing a lot more of the boat than you should do.
Right.
Because when you plug it into 6 feet, now it looks kind of all right. But when you put it to this, oh, well, you've got an extra 17 feet there that you shouldn't have had. And this is why the globers need it to be flat. They need you to be working from a flat surface. They don't want to talk about swell. And look right here. This is Rottnest Island, the swell forecast for right now. We've got, what have we got here? We've got
They
1.5 meter swell.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about that, but they have no problem saying that when we're looking across the floor in a warehouse or something, that the ground is so uneven that that's why the light that's at a far distance is being hidden. Yet, obviously, something that can be proven, the fact that the ocean isn't level like a warehouse floor, they won't point that out.
Yeah, it's exactly correct. When we talk about flat Earth, they want us to speak the word flat and believe in flat and flat. It's all flat. Everything's measured from being flat. It's never measured from reality.
Right.
And reality needs to include these things. Because if you look at all the observations that are done by many flat earthers, most of them, I would say, are done under 20 feet above actual sea level at the shoreline.
Sure.
Yeah. So most are done under 20 feet, probably most under 10. And if you look at these sea state codes and stuff, let's just go to a sea state of 5, which is pretty, middling.
Sure.
What does it come out to? It comes out anywhere between 1.25 and 2.5 meter wave heights.
Right, that's meters.
Right?
Meters, not
meters,
not feet. So that's taller than your 6-foot person observer.
Yeah, and you halve that obviously. So obviously 1 in 8 of these waves will be higher than the highest given. So let's suppose it's a 3 meter height, and then you halve that, so that's 1.5 meters. So that's your average human height, basically, or eye height of a human.
Right.
And that's just in average conditions with wind speeds around about 17 or 18 miles an hour.
Right.
Not hugely dramatic, right? And then once you start plugging that in, and then you go and you do your curve calcs, so you're doing your distance in miles, 10 miles, you've put yourself at 6 feet, you think you're seeing 26 feet of hidden, but really, if there's a 6 foot in front of you, you're actually at 0.
Right.
And now you've got 57 feet, and then you're seeing stuff in the distance that you shouldn't see. And that's a real problem for the globe because they need this standard refraction. Well, it's no good anymore. Once you start plugging all this other stuff in, standard diffraction won't cut it. It's going to be have to something like superlooming, inferior miraging, standard, non-standard refraction or something. Something retarded.
Something super, yeah. It's just ridiculous that they have to go to this. And again, there's been no evidence of it. Euro put it out there a while ago. I've heard Ranty talk about it as well, challenging anyone to show any kind of looming, and they can't.
Exactly. I don't think they ever will either.
No, I don't think it exists. No, it has to exist in order for the globe to be true, and therefore, in any glober's mind, it clearly exists. Because it has to in order for the globe to be true, in order for you to see things at such far distances that you shouldn't be able to see if you're looking at the math. And then if you add in these wave heights and things, we're going to be seeing things far beyond where we should be seeing them.
Just to emphasize the point about my location being flat, for the last 2 years when the illuminations have been launched in Blackpool, basically they keep the illuminations going after midnight. So it's generally on till 2 a.m. So throughout the rest of the year, it's only open till 12 o'clock. So we get around about 3.5 months or so of these illuminations. But on the switch on day, obviously they have the illuminations that stay on for much longer. So on both of those days, I'd already told on the Flat Earth debates that literally I was going to go across and start filming from Barrow-in-Furness. So I went the other way around this time. So I went to where that little peninsula of land is. I'll show you in a minute where that is, and looked back at Blackpool. So I'd already pre-told everybody where I was going to go, the dates I was going to go in advance. It's not like I just suddenly randomly picked this up and this is what happened. But the curve calcs were really interesting, and from this distance 120 feet should have been missing, and the last one that I did a live stream from, so I actually live streamed it from there too, and this is the video. What we're looking at here is the base of the tower where it goes dark is what you call the tower ballroom, right? So that's the tower ballroom, and funnily enough that's 120 feet high. Right, and the curve calcs say that 120 feet should be missing. Right, now I was at the water's edge.
Clearly not.
Clearly not. And this is the interesting part: is that obviously the further we go to the right, the greater distance that I'm looking at. So I only worked out 120 feet to this point, to the tower. So the further away I go, let's suppose let's say at this point here, 126 feet should have been missing, and then a bit further on and a bit further on. And obviously we're seeing just so much of this. These are all the illuminations switched on. They're not normal street lights, but the big lights that are strapped to the actual lampposts down at just above the water. So they're actually strapped to the lampposts, and they do all these flashing lights and stuff. This is a concert that was going on in front. All these lights here. This is where this big concert was going off, right in front of the tower. And I worked it out that these were only about 40 feet above actual sea level at the time. So 120 feet should be missing, but we're seeing these street lights, these concert lights at 40 feet above actual sea level. And it was really quite revealing when I did this live, and I was with my partner, and she said, "That's the concert." I said, "Is it?" And it's like, right, okay. So let's scroll a bit further. I had in the past people saying, why don't we see anything here? So in this spot here, and this spot here, and this spot here. Well, the reason being is that they had piers. This is on a pier. There's a pier underneath this with some buildings that isn't illuminated. There's more piers that go further on and further on. And what happens is I will scan across at some point in a minute, hopefully, and you will actually see the illuminations way further down at basically where the ice blast was, which like 160 feet or so should have been missing. Hang on. Oh, right. Oh, here we go. Here's before the illumination switched on. This is beforehand. This is the big one. So there's the big one, the top of the roller coaster with the big light on.
Right.
Then it's coming down, and then it goes back up again, and it turns back on itself, this coaster, and it goes back again. And then we come to, there's the ice blast. over here. And bearing in mind at this distance, these shouldn't have been seen. I'll give you, I'll show you exactly where I was on Google Earth.
Okay.
So you wanted some stunning flat Earth proof. Well, that's them. So on this day, so obviously to get to this location, it's quite, you can see it quite well. But to actually drive it, I had to come across all the way down here, all the way over here, all the way. It took me like 2.25 hours to get to this place. And then I had to walk across these sand dunes and step out into the water in the dark. It's crazy. Anyway, so I was about here, just off the sand there, just where the water comes up, and I'm looking across here towards Blackpool. So there's Bisbam, so we go past there. So there's the first pier. There's the wheel that we were seeing. So there's the Ferris wheel that was all lit up here. And here's the tower, and here's where they were playing the concert. This is where they were playing the concert, in front of the tower,
Okay.
which is just down here. And yeah, obviously we go further away, and I'll just show you where the big one was, which is way down here. So there's the top of the big one here. Can you see the big one starting to come into view?
Oh yeah, wow, can see it.
There we go. So there's the tip of the big one. So that's 18.5 miles away, basically. And I was seeing it from literally from maybe only 3 or 4 feet above actual sea level. Seeing all of this.
Wow.
Just crazy. 18.45 miles away. So yeah, we get some great observations in this spot, Jeren. And I put that down to it being just being relatively calm in all respects. I mean, there's no deep runoffs here. We're protected on one side by the Isle of Man. We've got a bit of protection there. And yeah, it just seems that in this spot we get some really cool observations. And people in Australia, they've got that drop off. You've got your drop off, and you get this shoaling effect. And I think that's what's been co-opted for Earth curve, or the bulge, so to speak.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So real quick, let's
Anything?
no, unless I'll give you a minute to look around, make sure you showed everything you wanted to show, but during that time we'll just promote you one more time. Ranty Flat Earth's channel, the first link in the description. Let's see if in the next 2 minutes or so we can get him up to 3,000 subs. He's at 2,993 as we speak. Yeah, so we got you close, but we can do 7 more, and according to this real-time subscribers, we should be able to hopefully watch it. So if you're not a subscriber, if you like the work Ranty does, if you appreciate his work like I do, if you appreciate his observations and want to support him, number one thing we can do is definitely subscribe to his channel. And then, so go ahead and go down to the first link in the description, go over and subscribe to Ranty. We'll watch that number shortly. Also, I wanted to point out again, the GoFundMe, which doesn't look like anybody shared yet or anybody donated yet, but if you like Ranty's work, there's also a Ranty-a-thon that I was on that we did on his channel. Did a great job, but we'll go through and read out some of these people that have helped, because I think it's awesome. And again, support what you like or it goes away. If you like the work Ranty does and some of his observations, you can donate £5, $5. Every little bit helps, and I think that we can all contribute to help each other out when somebody's got a good idea and he's got some ideas for what he wants to do with these observations. And again, if you want to help him out there, tinyurl.com/rantydrone. That is the website or the link that you can go to, or just go to GoFundMe and search for Ranty. Ranty, also, you have a GoFundMe, right?
I do, yeah.
No, sorry, not a GoFundMe. I mean a Patreon. My bad.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah, I do have a Patreon. It's you can find me on there. It's just Ranty Flat Earth.
There we go.
I think I have a few now. I think I've got about $60 or something each month, which really helps out, actually, because the amount of times I go and do these observations, it's fuel for the car and stuff.
Right.
So it's just really, it takes a little bit of pressure off of me, and people like to see me going out and doing this stuff and putting the legwork in. So it's nice to actually get something back from the community in that respect.
Awesome. So if you're on Patreon and you are one of my patrons, or I know Nathan Oakley's got some patrons, Antonio Subarat's, Morgile's got some, of course, Iru Landucci's got some. If you're a donator to some of them and you want to increase your donations by adding $5 a month or something to Ranty, I'm sure he would greatly appreciate it. But let's go back. Go ahead and tell people what your plan is or what you're thinking of doing with the GoFundMe, and then we'll read out some of these donators.
Yeah, I mean, with the drone and stuff, I mean, I see so many different boats out in the Irish Sea, so many different boats that don't have GPS on them, and the small boats normally, you know, with like a fisherman on it or something. In fact, I might have an image of that actually. Just bear with me and I'll show you. It might be under the compression one.
Sure, yeah, I got this screen up, so I'll just read out. He's got 48 donations so far for this drone, and I'll just read them out because I think it's awesome when people support. So Shane Cook obviously was the first one. It was very nice of him to donate to Ranty. And we got Bruce Lacey, 10 pounds, awesome. Colin Turner, thank you so much. Dottie McMenamin, thank you so much. 787 Jens, Michael Sekolovsky, huge donation of 100 pounds, very awesome. Paul Keeling, 20 pounds, thank you so much. Shirag Patel, thank you very much for helping out Ranty. An anonymous donation of 5 pounds. Derek Watson with a 30-pound donation, thank you so much. Myself with a 10-pound donation, thank you very much to me. Nathan Oakley doubled me up at a 20-pound donation, thank you very much. Sean Thornhill, thank you so much. Adam Meekin, thank you so much. Big shout out to Iron Realm Media over there. David Travat, awesome, 20-pound donation. Another anonymous 10-pound. Jerry Merciel, 20 pounds. Lee Power, thank you so much, Lee. Long time no talk. MiG13FE Antunes, whatever that is, 15 pounds. Thank you so much. Brian Chadwick, Julio Pabon for 10 pounds. Jason Disbury, Anthony Riley. I don't think that was actually him. It was somebody in his name, but maybe it was him. You'll have to check out the Ranty-a-thon to see that conversation. 10 pounds by Dieter Lebrun. Another 5 pounds from Adam Meekin. Thank you so much, Adam, for that. Twice helping out Ranty. Len Lennox, 15 pounds. Shandy Chadwick, thank you so much. Another anonymous 20-pound donation. Very awesome. A huge 78-pound donation from David Weiss. That's sweet, David. Thank you so much for helping out Ranty. Chris Berry with 10 pounds. Charles Holgate with 5. Katoon777 with 10. Life is short. Awesome. I love Travis over there. We're going to do another show soon, I'm sure. He's got a lot of good information over on his channel, spelled exactly like you see it on the screen. Life is one word short. The second 25-pound donation. Thank you for helping out Ranty. Colin Turner, 20 pounds. Brian Loner, 15 pounds. Spot On with 5 pounds. Christopher Lees with 5 pounds. Another MiG-13FE Antunes, 12 pounds. Leon Gang with 5. This one says Brenda, just kidding, 100 pounds, a huge donation. I don't think that was Brenda, but probably somebody far less dirtball. We've got Joe Gladino, 10 pounds. Thank you so much for helping out Ranty. Rasa Snowfire, Joe Pizzuti with a 40-pound. Shatner's Bassoon is 5 pounds. David Romero, who's always been there, awesome guy, 10 pounds. Thank you, David. Del West Watson with 10 pounds, another anonymous 10 pounds. Billy Waza with 10 pounds, and Joseph De Freitas with 20 pounds. And hopefully some people from today's show will head over there and help out as well. We'd really appreciate it. Ranty would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't thank everyone enough that's actually donated towards this. It's the Globers are always saying it's a luxury. I don't see it as a luxury. I see it as as a noose around my neck, really, because once I get a hold of that bad boy, I'll be making use of it, that's for sure, and it will definitely encourage me to go out and do even more of these observations. But the reason I specifically want a drone is twofold. I'm always, for the most part at least, on my own doing these observations, so it's really difficult to do some of the tests that I want to do. But in this particular case, this is just an observation of a boat, a gentleman fishing with his son, I believe. And I did some elevation drops on this dude. And obviously we had this inferior mirage that blocked them out, and they mirrored back down on each other. It was really a really weird effect. I've got a video of it. But I couldn't tell how far away these people were, and this is a common theme. It's like these guys don't have GPS on the boat, so it's not like I can find them and track them. So I have no idea of knowing how far away these guys are. So it would be nice to actually just fly out and see where these guys are, get an idea of how far away they are, so that I can do all this data. But there's another reason why, and this is for let me get paint up because this is pretty interesting. I actually listened to what Globers have to say, and I was in a live stream with the Rumpus and George Netanyahu, and they were talking.
That's another reason I respect you a lot, is because I want nothing to do with those guys. So you won't catch me in a hangout with George Netanchunk and fight the fat shirt or anything.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that. No,
okay.
In fact, it was the only time that I'd ever been in a live hangout with them on my own, and I was only in there because we were talking about. I heard them talking about Sly Sparkane and his observation and his experiment that he was going to do. And we were all in agreement that it was going to fail, and for particular reasons why it was going to fail. So we just started talking about that in general, and they went through a lot of stuff as why they thought it would fail. I talked about things why I thought it would fail. We came to a consensus that he would fail, and he did. And a lot of people donated towards that to actually fund that campaign, and it didn't work out. But he didn't want to listen, basically. So it's his own fault for not actually taking some of the advice that we would have been willing to offer him. But in that conversation, George Netanyahu mentioned this particular design of a post with sort of like these V-shaped things on. To if you was going to do a measurement with looking over a distance of let's say 3 miles, and you had 3 posts, and you could put all these posts in 1, 2, 3, and because of this design, you'd be able to know exactly what you were looking at on the board. Because if you was getting an inferior mirage, you'd see an inferior mirage. If you were seeing this just in its entirety, or let's say you were seeing it up to, say, that point, you would know where it stopped because you'd only see this part of the V. And if you come down and you see that much, you can literally triangulate it. And I thought that was really cool because if I made 3 of these and I went up to Loch Ness, because fortunately we've got this great place called Loch Ness in the UK. It's a bit of a journey, believe you me, to get there, but it's something that I actually want to do. Well, there's a whole bunch of places on this where I can get 3 locations, anywhere between 3 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles away. So let's suppose I was taking an observation from this point here, this little spot there, and then I filmed to that point there. So I've got a post there at 2.9 miles away, and then I've got another post in the background at 3.8 miles away there. So, but I can do this all along this location. There's lots of different places that I can find to do this. And if I put my posts in, and I'm on my own doing this, bearing in mind, I can fly the line. I can fly it with my drone, and I can film and show everybody that, hey, these posts are exactly where they should be. They're exactly the same height. They've been measured and designed, correctly. Mm-hmm. I've put them into the water, and they're all at the same height, and we have measured distances between each. I can fly the line with my drone to show that, and then I can do the observation with the P1000 and show, well, hopefully, complete flatness. That's the plan. And this kind of test can be repeated over and over and over along this particular peninsula here. It's so cool. We've got another position here where I can set myself up here. I can put a post there at 1.5 miles away, and then I can put another post there at 3.6 miles away, across that part there. I can fly the line with the drone, see that everything's exactly where I need it to be, and then I can zoom it, then I can get my P1000 out, I can film, I can look down the line and see whether or not we've got any kind of curvature or obstruction, And this is something that I can do over and over and repeat.
Right. Well, to be honest, too, I'm not even sure that a lot will come from a drone, to be completely honest. That's why I've never gone out, and I've never done a GoFundMe for one. I've never thought about purchasing one for, $1,500. But I think that you're an honest person. I've seen what you've done with the P1000. I've seen that I can just go to your channel and look at observations 2-3 times a week. You're posting videos about these observations, showing us all these things, and I trust you. So for me, when I just was able to go and donate $10, to me, I'm just donating that because I think it's a worthwhile investment into somebody who's going to go out and actually do observations with a drone. And if you go out and you're not doing much with it, or I don't think it's a lot useful, I lost $10. It's not the end of the world. But on the other hand, I just know based on your track record that that's not what I should expect. With my $10 investment, I bet you I'm going to get some beautiful footage and some beautiful ideas and things I never thought of that you're going to come up with and do with the drone. So that's why I think it's a good
Hell
idea
yeah.
and promote it, you know?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's my whole point. That's literally something. It's I have so many ideas that I want to do. I have so many things that I could work out, so many different boats I could fly to. And because it's quite a fast drone as well, I can fly out to any number of different boats. It's not just one boat that I could film, and I could have all different kinds of effects going on with different boats in different locations. It'll give me so much data. And if you know anything about me, it's all about the data, Jaren.
Yeah,
I've got
no.
4 terabytes of it now.
Absolutely. And just to show one more time, we did get you to the 3,000 subs. You're at 3,023. So thank you, everybody, so
Wow.
much who helped by subscribing to Ranty, get him some good subs over there. And you'll enjoy his videos. You'll be happy that you subbed there. And I didn't help you get much donations for your drone. I'll give you the...
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, and I know you got
it'll come when it comes.
Yeah, and you got a lot of super chats that I know how long it takes. I get super chats sometimes too, and I know it takes 2 months until you see those super chats come through to your bank account, and then also on top of that, Google lifts 30%. But maybe with those super chats plus whatever you end up with on the GoFundMe, you'll be able to afford that Mavic drone. So, and the last thing I want to mention too with the tinyurl.com/Ranty drone is even if you can't donate monetarily, which I understand, there's a lot of people who can't, and that makes complete sense. It is a tough world right now. But what you can do for free is simply go to tinyurl.com/Ranty drone and just hit the share button and share it on your Twitter, share it on your Facebook, share it on Instagram or whatever else you do. And let's help Ranty purchase a drone to do some more observations. So any final things that you want to show us? By the way, we do see some people. Somebody said, Jaren, you need to go outside and do some observations. Thank you very much, Carlos Pagan. I appreciate that. Have been doing that. I'm not the one who's asking for a drone, though. But anyway, I see a future without ignorant globers. Let's unite and tell them all the children and put the globe on the same category as Santa Claus. Thank you very much for Renee Calosia and Carlos Pagan for those super chats. And again, Ranty, do you have any final words or final observations you want to show before we head out?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I just want to get through this entire thing is for any researchers that are out there that have been doing these observations in the past to take into account this the swell, the wave height, and any effects of shoaling, because if you were at the shoreline and you had this shoaling effect in front of you, and it's all pushing up, and it's vertical lift of the water in this exact location, which I've showed you where it can be found, New Zealand, Australia, Monterey Bay, where you are, Jaren, you would be looking over a hump. You would be looking over a hump. It's not a hump of Earth curve,
right,
but it's an actual hump of just the design of our world. We have tides. Obviously, the debate will probably come back to, well, what causes tides then? That's obviously what this is all going to end up coming back to. But essentially, when we're looking for any kind of blockage like this, if it can be explained away with this kind of effect, it's just more armorous to us. And especially with these the wave heights and the swell heights, you absolutely need to deduct them from your viewer height. Absolutely. And when you do that, you'll suddenly see that this 76R is going to have to become even greater. They're going to have to come up with some kind of nonsense standard refraction to try and account for these observations, because they need the flat surface. They need the flat surface. Any swell or any wave is something that you need to subtract from your viewer height. And that's the most important thing that I want to try and sort of like say to people today.
Right, yeah. No, I think it's a great point, and I think it's so true, and it's actually matching our observations. And as far as me going out and doing some observations, again, I don't trust myself with a drone at all. I had a $75 drone at one time, and I went out and flew it, and it just flew off into no man's land, never to be found again. So luckily I can watch Deep Inside the Rabbit Holes videos, his Sun Fade Out videos. He's done some great work recently on those, and then I can watch Ranty's drone when he gets one. And as far as other observations, we're going to go out to the Salton Sea Sunday, which is this June 2nd. I'm going to go out there with them just because I want to see us try a mirror observation. I don't think it's the right time of year to do it, but I do think that the mirror observation is different than when they were trying to view some, I don't remember what it was, balloon last time or something. Because I do think, but this is what I like doing. I like going out at this time, and then I want to go back in the winter just to show, again, the difference that we see between these locations. Look across at Salton Sea. Yes, it's going to be June, early June. The temperatures won't be quite into the hundreds, but they'll definitely be in the 90s, and we'll be able to show the difference between last time they were out there, which I believe was in July or August or sometime when it was extremely hot there. It won't be quite that hot. The temperature hasn't got that hot up in California yet, but we're going to get to see what's going on there, and then we're going to have somebody across, and we're going to try and do a super long distance to see what we can see. There's reports of mirrors being seen for hundreds of miles. Of course, that was done from mountaintop to mountaintop in the Army and in the war, basically for communication reasons. So that gets away from the dirty air, the mucky air that sits above the water. But I do think it will fight through, and if we try and see across 10 miles, if we try and see across 20 miles, which you can do if you do the north-south distance, that's what we're going to do on June 2nd. So that will be an observation. So thank you guys both, Renee and Carlos, for your super chats. And Ranty, any final words before we head out?
No. Thank you, everybody that's subscribed as well. I hope to give you some really good stuff. There's plenty of good videos on there, I would say, if you want to look into some of the compression videos or the inferior mirage videos. They're really enlightening, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And again, tinyurl.com/rantydrone if you want to help out over there. At least share it on your Twitter, share it on your Facebook, share it on Instagram or whatever else you're on. I'm sure he would greatly appreciate that. If you want to support me, always the three easiest ways to do that: paypal.me/Jaron. You can add yourself to my patrons group at patreon.com/jeranism, or you can do Venmo just by searching at jeranism. Very simple, and a big shout out again to all my patrons who make this channel possible. If you want to mail me something, you can do that too at Jeranism, P.O. Box 3044, Merced, California 95344. So, Ranty, thanks so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
No worries.
All right. And to everyone else, I remind you to do your own research, because when you do, you'll never again believe what you've been taught. Till next time, this has been Jeranism and Ranty. Peace.
Peace.